Hey guys, Josh here. Today we're going to talk about SaaS Security API using SharePoint as an example, which is a new integration for us, and our ability to quarantine certain types of files based on DLP hits, data loss prevention hits, and you can use the same concepts for malware. So let's get started. So what are we talking about? SharePoint and quarantine first. So how do we set that up? So let's get right into setup. So you can go into assets here, and I can go into integrations. You go to SaaS Security API, and there you can see Microsoft Office 365. I have a separate video on this. You can go to the help. This creates an application connector to your Office 365 tenant so that we can get the data associated with SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange to be able to look for threats and monitor DLP hits. Okay, so set that up first. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go into SaaS Security API under security. So here, we're going to go into settings because we need to be able to create a quarantine folder. When it gets that DLP or threat hit, one of the options we want is to be able to quarantine that file. Hey, I'm a healthcare company, HIPAA hit happens, an insurance hit where they're using data to exfiltrate. I want to be able to quarantine that until I get a chance to look at it. Great, it's easy to do. Create new here, select the application by lab, and then it's going to show you the individual files that you can be able to use to quarantine that file. So this will be the place with quarantine files. Great. Now I'm going to go to data protection and I'm going to create a rule. In data protection, I have rules that I can use to individual application connector. So application connector, this happens in my SharePoint lab. I've enabled it. It's on high. Some other owner sharing, you can fill these details out. Content profiles, you create these under your DLP configuration tabs. I'm not going to cover that in this video. I have other videos going into DLP, but essentially it's very easy to set up. You have pre-built ones around credit cards, social security number, addresses, and you can build your own as well. When it gets a hit on one of those content profiles, that's what's going to alert on this rule. That's what's going to set up our quarantine process. And then under actions, what do we want to do? Do we want to monitor or quarantine? In this case, I want to quarantine and I want to send a notification, and then I want to send it to my all admin group. So my mailing list for all admins. Okay, good to go. So I'll save that, update all admins. So, and then as you can make sure you're moving your quarantine rules as the highest, especially when you start to test this, so that another rule doesn't take precedence over this. Great. Other things you can do just real quickly in SaaS Security API, you can do security checks. Here's the threat prevention for looking and quarantine malware. Same rules, you can go and set this up and quarantine malware directly within those Office 365 apps. All right, so now what's that look like when we go to monitor this and test this? So let's go right over to the SharePoint here, and I can start to look at here. I've actually hit some individual files, and I've moved them back and forth, some 1 megabit test files. These have social security numbers, names, and I've hit some viruses too, just to test this. There I have a little SharePoint sample site, and this is what's integrated into Cato. Great. Okay, first thing I do is I get this alert saying, hey, you've gotten a hit and we took an action called quarantine. Okay, cool. I need to go take a look at it. So let's go in and let's monitor this behavior. So once this is all set up, you can go monitor this directly on the SaaS Security API dashboard. So you can see I had SharePoint lab tests, 6 events, and I've quarantined 9 events total between all my connectors. So I can see what are those violation data profiles, the owners, and the violations by file. So now I can go in and start to look and see what's been quarantined. Let's look at those events. Cato has a massive data lake that's right at your fingertips that you can see all the detail associated with this. Here's the actual file type. Here's the file name, and here's the full path URL. And then we actually quarantine that behavior here, right here. 1 megabit test files have all been quarantined and stuffed into a separate area for you to go monitor. And we've seen that you have proprietary data leave your organization, and based on the content profile you set up, we alerted you on. All right, so in summary, talking about SharePoint and quarantine, you can go in here, you can set up easily using under assets and look at integration of it. And then you can monitor all here right from the SaaS Security API dashboard. Thanks guys, hope this is helpful.